So the first one I want to talk about is actually a discovery that just happened just recently. Around December of 2019, a digging in the Israel area in the West Bank by the city, today it's called Nablus. That is the New Testament city of Sychar. That's where Jacob's well was in the Old Testament. The woman at the well story, if you're familiar with John chapter 4, that's where this takes place. And there's two mountains that are right there with a valley in between. One mountain on the what would be the west side is Mount Gerizim, which the Samaritans or the place where they said that this is where you worship God, not in Jerusalem, but here. That's what the question that the woman at the well asked Jesus. On the opposite mountain, across from the valley, is Mt Ebal. Now, back in the 1970s, an archaeologist by the name of Adam Zertal discovered an altar on Mt Ebal, and it's called the Mount of Curses, from a passage in Deuteronomy chapter 19, I believe it is. But that mountain is the mountain of curses, and Mount Gerizim is the Mount of Blessings. But Adam Zertal, digging up there, they came across an altar that dates, what he found out, dating back all the way to Joshua. And we do know that according to Joshua chapter 8, that Joshua is instructed to build an altar up there. Now remember, Joshua is a contemporary of Moses. So he was there through all the Exodus and stuff, and Moses was constantly being told by God to write things down. Well, Adam Zertal finds this altar in the 1970s, and they were sifting through the rubble and stuff like that. Lots of plaster, which is interesting because God told Joshua to coat this altar in plaster and then write the law on it. And they found, Adam Zertal found all sorts of pieces of plaster all over the place up there where this altar sits. And they were just discarding things, and they found a little thing about 1 inch by 1 inch, actually 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters, small little flat thing, and they sort of like, ooh, that's a little amulet. But they didn't go into it. They didn't study it. They threw it in the dump pile. Well, that was in the 70s. Now, in right around December of 2019 and January of 2020, they were sifting through the junk pile, through the rubbish pile there, and they refound this little amulet. And as this thing was being discovered, they found out that it just looks like a small little piece of rock, but it's not. It's actually made of lead. It's lead that's been beaten, and then with like an iron tool, it was inscribed with some writing on it. And it's so old, it can't be taken apart. It's a piece of lead that was actually folded over, and that's how it has sat for centuries. So they took the lead and they studied the lead, and they took the pieces of other parts from that rubbish pile and tried to get a date on it using all sorts of testing methods. And they did this in Prague, where they tested a lot of things, and independent tests. These are not Christian-based things, but what they did is they did a lot of testing on it, and they found that this piece of this amulet, this little Mt Ebal curse amulet, as it's often called on the Google searches today, actually dates back to about 1400 to 1450 BC. That's the time of Moses and Joshua. But now, you can't open it. They knew what it was. Scholars all understood. This is an amulet. It was a piece of lead beaten out, very, very thin, and then with an iron tool, they were able to inscribe words on there. And there's just a few words that you find on this thing, but what it has on here is remarkable because it's talking about curses, following curses of God. If they don't follow the laws of God, it's a curse. It was a little amulet that was written dealing with what is described in Joshua chapter 8, verses 30 through 35. God tells them blessings that the Israel nation will have if they follow him, curses if they don't. And it talks about curses. It says cursed, 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 cursed of Yehovah, or Yahweh, if you will. But the thing is, even the name of God, which is spelt YHW in our English translation, putting it into English letters, that's the name, the true name of God, and it actually appears on there twice in this little amulet. Now, how do they know that? Well, they took this little thing, like I say, they can't open it, would destroy it if they open it. So they wisely took it to some scholars, and they did CT-like scans, and very similar to a medical CT. By scanning through different layers of it, they could see that there was letters in there, and they could actually then, with the scans, make it that they could read what it actually says. And it has in there this writing, talking about this curse that we read about in Joshua chapter 8, and it's right there. The point is, now, you ready? So what's all this mean? This dates back to 1400 BC. That's the time of Joshua and Moses. Also, you have early Hebrew writing here showing without any doubt whatsoever the Hebrew people definitely had a written language. Now, what are these modern professors teaching at universities? That the Hebrew people didn't have a language till what? 425 BC? This is 1400. This is a millennium before this. This is at the time of Moses. So when God is telling Moses in the Torah, and he's writing this stuff down, God says, write this down. They were able to write stuff down. This is a remarkable discovery that just happened. It was published in 2022. Just March of this year was this published. So it's just now getting out there into the news. But it's a phenomenal discovery because not only does it prove, without a shadow of a doubt, that the Hebrew people had a written language, but it also even has the name of God. And it's right, the context of this little amulet is right where the event was taking place. It happens on Mount Ebal.
Thanks for tuning in, and thank you to our donors who make this program possible. Evidence for Faith is a 501c3 nonprofit ministry based in the USA. You can support this broadcast by donating online using the links in the description, and don't forget to leave us a comment, a review, likes, and shares to feed the algorithm and help others find this content. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode.